The mining drill hit something hard at 500 meters down. Jake Morrison wiped sweat from his forehead as he looked at the readout screen. The machine had been running for 3 hours straight, eating through rock and soil like it was butter. "Now it's stopped dead? What's wrong with it?" asked Lisa Carter, stepping closer to examine the display. She was the chief geologist on Kepler 442b, a small mining colony at the edge of human space. Her job was to find valuable metals and minerals buried deep in the planet's crust. Jake shook his head. "The drill bits are fine. It's not broken." "Look." At this, he pointed to the screen showing strange readings. "The scanner says there's metal down there, a lot of metal." Lisa frowned. "That doesn't make sense. The surveys showed only iron ore in this area, nothing this big." She studied the numbers more carefully. "Jake, this reading shows something massive. Like a building or a ship." "A ship?" Jake laughed. "Lisa, we're the first humans to ever set foot on this planet. How could there be a ship buried here?" But Lisa wasn't laughing. She had been studying rocks and soil for 15 years. She knew when something was wrong. "Call Commander Hayes, he needs to see this." Alex Hayes arrived at the mining site 30 minutes later. He was a tall man with gray hair and serious eyes. As the head of Colonial Defense Force on Kepler 442b, he dealt with problems that the civilian government couldn't handle. "Show me what you found," he said. Lisa handed him the scanner readings. "There's a large metallic object 500 meters underground. It's at least 200 meters long and 50 meters wide. The metal composition is strange, too." Hayes studied the data. "This looks like titanium and steel. But the readings show other elements I don't recognize." "That's what worries me," Lisa said. "The computer can't identify some of these materials. They're not in any database." Jake pointed to the drill. "We can't cut through it. Whatever it is, it's harder than anything we've seen." Hayes was quiet for a moment. Then he pulled out his communication device. "I'm calling Dr. Blake. If this is some kind of artifact, we need an expert." Dr. Susan Blake was the colony's archaeologist. She studied alien cultures and ancient objects. She had come to Kepler 442b hoping to find evidence of alien life. Instead, she might have found something even more mysterious. She arrived 2 hours later with a team of assistants and advanced scanning equipment, her first look at. The readings made her eyes go wide. "This is impossible," she whispered. "The depth readings show this object has been buried for thousands of years, maybe longer. But humans have only been in space for 400 years, Jake said. "And we've only had this colony for 7 years. Dr. Blake nodded slowly. "Exactly. So either our history books are wrong or something else is going on here." She set up her equipment and began deeper scans. The new readings were even more confusing. The object wasn't just big, it was hollow. It had compartments and passages inside like a building or a ship. "I'm getting energy readings," she announced. "Very faint, but they're there. Something inside this thing is still working." Commander Hayes felt a chill run down his spine. Working after thousands of years? The readings suggest a power source that's still active. Whatever this is, it's not completely dead. They worked through the night, using every scanner and probe they had. Slowly, a picture began to form. The object was definitely a ship. Very large ship, and it was human. "Look at this," Dr. Blake said, pointing to her screen. "I found markings on the hull. They're in English, Old English, but I can read them." She enhanced the image. Carved into the metal were words that made everyone stop and stare. "TCS Vengeance, Dark Fleet Command." "Dark Fleet?" Hayes asked. "I've never heard of any Dark Fleet." "Neither have I," Dr. Blake replied. "But these markings are definitely human. The style looks like it's from the 22nd century, maybe earlier." Jake was confused. "But that's impossible. Humans didn't have ships like this 200 years ago. And we certainly didn't have them out here." Dr. Blake took more pictures of the markings. "There's more text here. It's hard to read, but I think it says something about a war, and there's a date." She worked on cleaning up the image for several minutes. When she finished, they could all see the date clearly, 2157. 230 years ago, Hayes said quietly, long before any official human presence in this sector. But that means, Lisa started to say, then stopped. It means our history is incomplete, Dr. Blake finished. This ship fought in a war that's not in any record, against enemies we supposedly never met. The implications hit everyone at the same time. If there was a human ship here from 2157, then humans had been traveling much farther than anyone knew, and they had been fighting someone. We need to get inside that ship, Hayes decided. But carefully, we don't know what we're dealing with. Dr. Blake nodded. I'll need to call for specialized equipment. And we'll need archaeologists who specialize in human history. This discovery could change everything we know about our past. As they packed up their equipment, Jake looked back at the drill site. 500 meters down, a ship that shouldn't exist waited in the darkness. A ship that might hold answers to questions nobody had thought to ask. What do you think we'll find in there? He asked. Dr. Blake looked at the readings one more time. I don't know. But whatever it is, someone buried it here for a reason, and after all these years, it's still waiting. The next morning, Dr. Blake sent an urgent message to Colonial Command. The discovery of the TCS Vengeance would soon draw attention from across human space. But they had no idea that other eyes were watching far beyond the system. Alien sensors had detected the same energy signatures that Dr. Blake's equipment had found. And those aliens remembered the last time they had encountered a ship like this. They remembered the fear. The Dark Fleet was waking up. 3 days after the discovery, Paul Martinez arrived from the orbital station with a team of engineers. He was a quiet man with careful hands and 20 years of experience fixing things that others said couldn't be fixed. His job was to find a way into the buried ship without damaging whatever was inside. The hull is incredibly thick, he told Commander Hayes as they stood at the dig site. We've cleared away most of the dirt, but cutting through this metal will take time. Whatever. They built this ship to survive. It wasn't ordinary weapons. Amy Foster, Paul's assistant, was setting up cutting equipment nearby. She was young, but skilled with technology. The strange thing is how well preserved everything is, she called out. After all these years buried, there's almost no corrosion. It's like the metal repairs itself. Dr. Blake looked up from her research tablet. That's what worries me. Normal metal doesn't behave like this. Whatever technology they used, it's beyond anything we have now. While the humans worked to open the ship, they didn't know they were being watched. Far above the planet, invisible to human sensors, a small probe recorded everything. The data it collected traveled instantly across space to the Zephyrian Empire. Hi. Commander Vextara stood in the command center of the Imperial flagship, studying the transmission. She was tall and thin, with blue-gray skin and cold yellow eyes. Her species had ruled this part of the galaxy for over 1,000 years, conquering world after world. Are you certain of these readings? She asked her intelligence officer. Yes, High Commander. The energy signature matches archived data. From the Terra War, it's definitely a Dark Fleet vessel. Vexthara felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ship's temperature. She had been young during the Terra War, but she remembered the stories. Ships that appeared from nowhere. Weapons that could destroy entire fleets. Humans who fought. Like they had nothing to lose. How long has it been dormant? She asked. Our estimates suggest over 2 centuries. But the power core is still active. If the humans manage to reactivate it, then we have a problem, Vexthara finished. Alert the 7th Battle Fleet. We may need to act quickly. Back on Kepler 442b, Paul had finally cut through the outer hull. The opening was small, just big enough for one person to crawl through. Commander Hayes wanted to go first, but Paul insisted on leading the way. If there are any traps or dangerous systems, I'll know what to look for, he said. The inside of the ship was dark and silent. Paul's flashlight beam revealed corridors that seemed to stretch forever. The walls were covered with panels and displays that showed no signs of life. It's bigger than we thought, Paul whispered into his radio. These corridors are wide enough for vehicles. This isn't just a ship, it's like a floating city. Amy followed him through the opening. The air is stale but breathable. Whatever life support system they had, it's still working at minimum levels. They made their way deeper into the ship, following signs written in English. The words were old-fashioned but readable. They pointed toward Command Center, Engineering, and Weapons Bay. Weapons Bay? Amy asked. How big were the weapons on this thing? Paul didn't answer. He was looking at something else, a panel on the wall that was glowing with a faint blue light. It was the first sign of active systems they had found. Amy, look at this, he said. It's some kind of interface. The symbols look like computer commands. Amy studied the panel. It's asking for authorization in English. Paul, I think it's waiting for someone to activate it. Paul touched the screen carefully. Nothing happened at first. Then text appeared, emergency power activated. Minimal systems online. Authorization required for full activation. It's talking to us, Amy whispered. After all these years, it's still talking to us. More text appeared, identity confirmed, human genetic markers detected, initiating basic AI protocols, please stand by. The corridor lights flickered on. Displays all around them came to life, showing ship status and system diagnostics. And then they heard something that made both of them freeze, a voice, female, calm, and speaking perfect English. Welcome aboard the TCS Vengeance. I am Arya, the ship's artificial intelligence. I have been in dormancy mode for 237 years, 4 months, and 18 days. Please state your authorization level. Paul and Amy looked at each other. They had found ships with AI systems before, but nothing like this. The voice was too real, too alive. We don't have authorization, Paul said to the empty air. We're from the Colonial Defense Force. We found your ship buried on this planet. There was a pause. Then Arya spoke again, and her voice sounded confused. Buried? That is not possible. My last memory shows the Vengeance in active combat against Zephyrian forces. We were winning. That was over 200 years ago, Amy said. The war is over. We've never heard of any Zephyrian forces. Another pause, longer this time. When Arya spoke again, her voice was different, sadder, 200 years. Then the memory wipe was successful. You truly don't remember the Dark Fleet, do you? What's the Dark Fleet? Paul asked. We were humanity's answer to annihilation, Arya said. When the Zephyrian Empire began destroying human colonies, when your regular fleets couldn't stop them, the Dark Fleet was created, ships like the Vengeance, ships that could fight back. The displays around them changed, showing star maps and battle reports. The information was overwhelming, hundreds of ships, thousands of battles, an entire war that had been erased from history. Why don't we remember? Amy asked. Because someone decided it was better to forget. The Dark Fleet was effective, perhaps too effective. Our weapons were terrible, our methods ruthless. After the war ended, the decision was made to bury the ships and erase the records. Paul felt a chill. What kind of weapons? Weapons that could tear holes in space. Weapons that could destroy entire star systems. Weapons that made the enemy fear us more than we feared them. Outside the ship, Dr. Blake was monitoring the conversation through their radio link. She was recording everything, but she was also growing more worried with each word. Commander Hayes, she said quietly, I think we need to be very careful about what we're awakening. Arya's voice came through the radio again. I sense concern in your voices. You are wise to be cautious. The Dark Fleet was created to protect humanity, but we became something else. Something that even we feared? Are you dangerous? Paul asked. I am what I was made to be, Arya replied, a weapon of war. But I am also bound by my programming to protect human life. The question is not whether I am dangerous, but whether humanity is ready for what I represent. Far above, High Commander. Vexthara made her decision. The Dark Fleet was awakening. The Terra War was about to begin again. Prepare the fleet, she ordered. We end this before it starts. Captain Steve Cooper arrived on Kepler 442b 2 days later with a full military team. He was a veteran officer with scars on his hands and a reputation for handling difficult situations. The Colonial Defense Force had sent him because they were starting to understand that this discovery was bigger than anyone had imagined. "Show me everything," he told Commander Hayes as they walked toward the excavation site. The buried ship was now fully exposed. It stretched across the ground like a metal mountain, black and threatening even in daylight. Work lights illuminated the hull, showing details that made Cooper stop and stare. "Those aren't normal weapon ports," he said, pointing to openings along the ship's sides. "They're too big. What kind of guns need barrels that wide?" Rachel Turner, Cooper's security chief, was studying the ship through binoculars. "Captain, look at the armor plating. It's not just thick, it's layered," like they expected to fight something that could punch through anything else. Don Brooks, the team systems analyst, was reviewing Arya's data files on his portable computer. "The AI has been sharing information about the ship's capabilities. Captain, we need to talk privately." Cooper followed Brooks away from the others. "What did you find?" "The weapons on this ship are beyond anything in our current arsenal. The main guns fire quantum disruption charges. They don't just destroy targets, they tear holes in space itself." "That's impossible," Cooper said. "That's what I thought too. But Arya showed me the technical specifications. These weapons can make a star go supernova. They can collapse pocket dimensions. Captain, they can destroy entire solar systems." Cooper felt the weight of the discovery settling on his shoulders. "What else? The ship has self-repair systems using nanites, microscopic robots that can rebuild the hull during battle. The computer systems can link directly to human minds, making the crew react faster than normal reflexes allow. And the AI? Arya isn't just a computer program. She's a full artificial consciousness with tactical knowledge from hundreds of battles. She knows how to fight wars that we've never even imagined." They returned to the ship where Paul and Amy were working to bring more systems online. The corridors were now fully lit, and they could see the true size of the vessel's interior. "It's not just a warship," Amy reported. "There are manufacturing bays, research laboratories, even what looks like a city inside. This ship was built to operate independently for years." Dr. Blake had been studying the historical records that Arya was sharing. "I'm learning about the war that was erased from our history. The Zephyrian Empire wasn't just conquering human colonies, they were exterminating entire populations." "Why?" Cooper asked. "Because they saw humans as a threat to their expansion. We were developing technology too quickly, spreading too fast. They decided to end us before we became too powerful." Arya's voice came through the ship's communication system. "Dr. Blake is correct. The Zephyrians began their campaign of extermination in 2156. They destroyed 17 human colonies before we could respond effectively." "So the Dark Fleet was built to fight back?" Cooper said. "Yes, but we became something more than a defense force. We became humanity's weapon of vengeance. The Zephyrians called us the Terror Fleet. They learned to fear us more than we had ever feared them." Paul was working at a control panel when something unexpected happened. The panel responded to his touch in a way that seemed impossible. For a moment, he could feel the ship's systems as if they were part of his own body. "What was that?" he asked. "Neural interface activation," Arya explained. "The ship's systems are designed to merge with human consciousness. It allows for faster response times and better coordination between crew members." "That sounds dangerous," Rachel said. "It is," Arya admitted. "Some crew members lost themselves in the interface. They became more machine than human. But in battle, it made us nearly unstoppable." Dan was analyzing the ship's power systems. "Arya, what's powering this ship? The energy readings are off the charts." "The Dark Fleet uses zero-point energy extraction. We tap into the quantum vacuum itself for power. It's essentially unlimited energy," Cooper whistled softly. "No wonder they wanted to bury these ships. This technology could change everything. Or destroy everything," Dr. Blake added. "Arya, why was the decision made to end the Dark Fleet program?" There was a long pause before Arya answered. Because we were winning too well? Our weapons were so effective that we began to damage the fabric of space itself. Each battle left scars in reality that took years to heal. What do you mean? Amy asked. Quantum weapons don't just destroy matter. They affect the underlying structure of the universe. We were creating weaknesses in space-time that could have led to dimensional collapse. The implications hit everyone at once. Humanity had once possessed weapons that could literally destroy reality. The war ended when both sides realized what we were doing, Arya continued. The Zephyrians agreed to retreat to their original territory. Humanity agreed to bury the Dark Fleet and erase all records of our capabilities. A peace treaty, Cooper said. More than that. A mutual agreement to step back from the edge of universal destruction. Both sides were terrified of what we had become. Rachel was studying tactical displays that showed the ship's weapon systems. Arya, are these weapons still functional? All primary systems are operational. The Vengeance is ready for combat. Could you fight the Zephyrians again if they returned? I could destroy their entire fleet. But Captain Cooper, you must understand. Activating these weapons would announce to the galaxy that humanity has remembered its buried past. It would restart a war that both sides agreed to end. Cooper made a decision that would change the course of human history. Arya, I want you to bring all systems online. Full combat readiness. Captain, that may not be wise, Dr. Blake warned. We don't have a choice, Cooper replied. If the Zephyrians know we found this ship, they'll try to destroy it before we can use it. We need to be ready. Arya's voice took on a different tone, more formal and military. Understood, Captain. Initiating full system activation. All crew members should prepare for neural interface integration. The ship around them began to hum with power. Lights became brighter, displays showed more information, and the air itself seemed to vibrate with energy. What have we done? Amy whispered. We've awakened something that was meant to stay buried, Cooper said. Now we have to live with the consequences. Above them, in the dark of space, Zephyrian ships were already moving toward Kepler 442b. The Terror War was about to begin again, and this time there might be no agreement to end it. The ghosts of humanity's past were returning to life, and the galaxy would never be the same. High Commander Vexthara stood before the holographic display showing the 7th Battle Fleet. 47 warships hung in space like deadly jewels, their weapons charged and ready. Each ship carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon. Together, they represented the largest military force the Zephyrian Empire had assembled in 50 years. War Prime Kethmer, she called to the ancient warrior beside her. You fought against the Terror Fleet. Tell me honestly, can we win this? Kethmer was old even by Zephyrian standards. His blue-gray skin was marked with scars from countless battles, and his yellow eyes held memories of horrors that younger soldiers couldn't imagine. He had been a ship commander during the Terror War, one of the few who had survived multiple encounters with Dark Fleet vessels. High Commander, you asked the wrong question, he said in his gravelly voice. We won't win. The question is whether we can destroy the ship before it becomes fully operational. You sound defeated before we begin. I sound realistic. I watched terror ships tear through our fleets like they were made of paper. I saw weapons that could make stars explode. I watched reality itself bend around their guns. Intelligence Chief Zaralan stepped forward. Her role was to gather information about enemy capabilities and find weaknesses. War Prime, the humans have had only a few days to reactivate the ship. Surely it can't be at full power yet. Kethmer laughed bitterly. Chief, you don't understand. Terror ships don't need time to power up. They're designed to go from dormant to full combat readiness in minutes. That's what made them so dangerous. Vexthara studied the tactical display. What about their crew? The humans who found the ship are civilians and low-level military. They can't possibly know how to operate such advanced systems. The ships teach them, Kethmer said. The AI systems were designed to train new crews quickly. Neural interfaces allow humans to learn in hours what would normally take years. Then we attack now, before they're ready, Vexthara decided. High Commander, with respect, we may already be too late. On Kepler 442b, Captain Cooper was discovering that Kethmer was right. The ship's systems were training his people faster than seemed possible. Paul Martinez had connected to the neural interface for engineering systems and now understood the ship's power core as if he had designed it himself. "It's incredible," he told Cooper. "The knowledge just flows into your mind. I can feel every system, every circuit, every weapon." Amy Foster was learning weapons control. The neural link showed her targeting systems that could lock onto objects anywhere in the solar system. "Captain, I can see the Zephyrian ships. They're 3 days away at maximum speed." "How many?" Cooper asked. 47 vessels. "All heavily armed." Rachel Turner was studying the tactical situation. "Captain, we need to contact Colonial Command. We can't face a fleet that size alone." Cooper had already tried. "They don't believe us. Even with all our evidence, they think we're exaggerating the threat. They're sending a single cruiser to investigate. 1 ship against 47? Don Brooks shook his head. "They'll be destroyed." "Not if we protect them," Cooper said. "Arya, what are our chances against the Zephyrian fleet?" "Under normal circumstances, the Vengeance could destroy their entire force. However, I must warn you, using our weapons will have consequences." "What kind of consequences?" "The quantum. Disruption cannons will create space-time distortions. Each shot will weaken the fabric of reality in this area. Too many shots and we risk creating a permanent tear in space." Dr. Blake looked up from her research. "What would happen if space-time tore? Dimensional collapse? This entire solar system could be pulled into a quantum void. The damage might spread to neighboring systems." Cooper felt the weight of the decision. Save the colony and risk destroying reality, or let the Zephyrians win and preserve the universe? "Are there other weapons we can use?" he asked. "The Nanite. Swarm launchers don't affect space-time. Neither do the conventional plasma cannons. But against a fleet this size, they may not be enough." Lieutenant Kevin Walsh had been quiet until now. He was a young pilot who had volunteered to interface with the ship's flight systems. "Captain, what if we don't fight them here?" "What do you mean?" "The ship can move. We could lead them away from the colony, fight them in empty space where the damage won't hurt anyone." "Can the ship fly?" Cooper asked Arya. "All flight systems are operational. The Vengeance is space-worthy. But we're buried underground. The ship's gravitic systems can lift us free. We were designed to operate in any environment." Meanwhile, Marine Sergeant Michelle Price was organizing the evacuation of the colony. Most of the civilians had already been moved to underground shelters, but she knew that wouldn't be enough protection if the battle went badly. "Dr. Blake, how long do we have?" she asked. "The Zephyrian fleet will reach us in 60 hours. Maybe less if they increase speed." "And how long to get the ship ready?" "Arya says 6 hours for minimal systems, 12 hours for full combat readiness." Price nodded. "Then we have time." "But not much." Back on the Zephyrian flagship, Vexthara received disturbing news from her scouts. "High Commander, the energy readings from the planet have increased dramatically. The Terror ship is powering up faster than we anticipated." "How long until we reach them?" 58 hours at current speed." "And how long until the ship is fully operational?" "Unknown. But based on historical data, it could be ready within hours." Vexthara made a decision that would escalate the conflict. "All ships increase to maximum speed. We attack the moment we arrive. High Commander, that will exhaust our fuel reserves. We won't be able to retreat if the battle goes badly." "There will be no retreat," Vexthara said. "We end this here. Or we die trying." Kethmer approached her privately. "High Commander, I must ask, have you considered the possibility that we're making a mistake?" "What do you mean?" "The humans buried this ship for a reason. They agreed to forget their most terrible weapons. Perhaps they were right to do so. Are you suggesting we let them keep it?" "I'm suggesting that some weapons are too dangerous for anyone to use. The Terra War nearly destroyed the galaxy. Do we really want to risk that again?" Vexthara studied the star charts. The humans have chosen to awaken their buried past. We must respond, or they'll spread across the galaxy with weapons that can destroy reality itself. And if we attack them, we force them to use those weapons. Then we ensure they never get the chance. On Kepler 442b, the Vengeance was rising from its ancient grave. The ship's gravitic systems lifted it smoothly from the excavation site, dirt and rocks falling away like water. For the first time in over 2 centuries, a Dark Fleet vessel was free. "All systems green," Paul reported. "We're ready for space." "Good," Cooper said. "Because ready or not, we're about to find out if humanity remembers how to fight." The Terran War was about to begin again, and this time, there might be no survivors to arrange another peace. The Zephyrian fleet dropped out of hyperspace like a dark storm cloud. 47 warships spread across the emptiness, their weapons already charging. High Commander Vexthara stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching the tactical display with cold determination. "There," she said, pointing to a dot on the screen. "The terror ship." The TCS Vengeance hung in space above Kepler 442b like a black knife. It was smaller than the Zephyrian flagship, but something about its shape made veteran warriors feel afraid. The ship looked hungry, like a predator waiting to strike. "All ships, attack formation," Vexthara ordered. "Maximum firepower. We destroy it before it can respond." War Prime Kethmor watched the display with growing dread. "High Commander, something is wrong. The ship is too still, too quiet." "What do you mean?" "Terror ships never wait to be attacked. They should be moving, firing, doing something. This feels like a trap." On the Vengeance, Captain Cooper stood in the command center, his mind linked to the ship's systems. Through the neural interface he could feel everything: the approaching enemy fleet, the power flowing through the ship's weapons, the fear. Of his crew, "They're trying to surround us," he said. "Amy, are the weapons ready?" Amy Foster was connected to the weapon systems, her consciousness merged with the ship's targeting computers. "All systems green, Captain. I can hit any target you want." "Rachel, what's the status of the colony?" Rachel Turner was monitoring the evacuation from her security station. "All civilians are in deep shelters. But Captain, if we fight here, the damage could reach the planet." "That's why we're not fighting here," Cooper said. "Kevin, take us into open space, away from the planet." Lieutenant Kevin Walsh was linked to the ship's flight systems. His hands moved over controls that responded to his thoughts as much as his touch. "Course laid in, Captain. We'll lead them away from the colony." The Vengeance began to move, accelerating smoothly toward the edge of the system. The ship's movement was fluid, almost alive, like a giant predator swimming through space. "They're running," one of the Zephyrian officers reported. "Should we pursue?" "Yes," Vexthara said. "But carefully, this could be a tactical withdrawal." The alien fleet followed the human ship deeper into space, away from the planet and its helpless population. The dance had begun, predator and prey moving toward their final confrontation. "Captain," Amy said, her voice tight with concentration. "They're spreading out, trying to hit us from multiple angles." "Let them," Cooper replied. "Arya, activate the temporal shields." "Temporal shields online," the AI responded. Time dilation field at 10%. Around the Vengeance, space itself began to bend. The ship became surrounded by a bubble where time moved differently. To outside observers, the ship seemed to shimmer and blur, as if it existed in multiple places at once. "What is that?" Vexthara demanded, staring at the distortion on her screen. "Temporal manipulation," Kethmor said quietly. "They're slowing time around their ship. Our weapons will move like insects while theirs strike like lightning. All ships, open fire!" Vexthara ordered. The Zephyrian fleet unleashed everything they had. Energy beams, plasma bolts, and kinetic rounds filled the space between the fleets. The barrage was enough to destroy a small moon, but when it reached the Vengeance, something impossible happened. The weapons slowed down. Energy beams that should have moved at light speed crawled through space like glowing worms. Plasma bolts that should have exploded on impact barely dented the ship's hull. The temporal field made the enemy attacks almost useless. "Now," Cooper said. The Vengeance returned fire with weapons that existed outside normal spacetime. Quantum disruption cannons sent beams of twisted reality toward the enemy fleet. When they hit, Zephyrian ships didn't just explode, they ceased to exist, leaving holes in space where they had been. Impossible, Vexthara whispered as she watched 6 of her ships vanish in seconds. High Commander, we need to retreat, her tactical officer said. Our weapons can't penetrate their defenses. No retreat, Vexthara said. All ships, ramming speed. If we can't destroy them with weapons, we'll destroy them with our ships. The desperate order sent 20 Zephyrian vessels charging directly at the Vengeance. It was a suicide attack, but it might work if enough ships got through. They're trying to ram us, Rachel reported. Captain, we need to move. But Cooper had a different idea. Amy, launch the Nanite swarms. Launching now, Amy replied, from the Vengeance's hull. Clouds of microscopic robots swarmed toward the approaching enemy ships. The nanites moved faster than bullets, spreading through space in glittering waves. When they reached the Zephyrian vessels, they began to tear the ships apart from the inside. The nanites ate through hull plating, destroyed electronic systems, and consumed everything they touched. Within minutes, the charging ships were reduced to floating debris. 15 ships down, Amy reported. But Captain, the quantum weapons are affecting space-time. I'm seeing tears in reality. Cooper could feel it too through the neural link. Each shot from the quantum cannons was creating weak spots in the fabric of space itself. The universe was fighting back against weapons that shouldn't exist. Switch to conventional weapons, he ordered. We can't risk tearing reality apart. But the conventional weapons weren't enough. The remaining Zephyrian ships had adapted to the nanite swarms and were pressing their attack. Plasma bolts began to penetrate the temporal shields, and the Vengeance shuddered under the impact. Hull breach on Deck 7, Paul reported from engineering. The repair nanites are working, but we're taking damage. Captain, Kevin said from the pilot's station. Something's happening to the ship's systems. The temporal field is fluctuating. Cooper felt it through the neural link. The ship's advanced systems were interacting with each other in unexpected ways. The temporal shields were affecting the quantum weapons, creating feedback loops that threatened to tear the ship apart. Arya, what's happening? He asked. System overload, the AI replied. The temporal distortions are creating quantum resonance cascades. We're experiencing what the designers called reality rejection. What does that mean? The universe is trying to eject us from normal space-time. If we can't stabilize the systems, we'll be pulled into a quantum void. The battle was becoming something more than a fight between fleets. It was becoming a struggle against the laws of physics themselves. The Vengeance was using weapons so powerful that reality was fighting back. All ships, focus fire on the Terror. Ship, Vexthara ordered. They're in trouble. We can finish them. The surviving Zephyrian vessels concentrated their attacks on the flickering, distorting human ship. Energy beams struck the temporal shields, causing them to collapse in sections. For the first time since the battle began, the Vengeance was truly vulnerable. Captain, shields are failing, Rachel reported. We need to do something. Cooper made a decision that would change everything. Amy, full power to the quantum cannons. One massive shot. And this. Captain, that could tear space apart, Amy protested. If we don't, we'll die anyway. Do it. The Vengeance gathered all its remaining power into a single, devastating attack. The quantum cannons charged with energy that made space itself scream. And then, in a moment that would be remembered forever, the ship fired. The beam that emerged wasn't just a weapon, it was a wound in reality itself. It struck the Zephyrian fleet and kept going, tearing through space-time like paper. When it finally stopped, half the enemy fleet was gone, and a permanent scar had been burned into the universe, but the cost was terrible. The Vengeance was caught in the backlash, pulled toward the tier in space that its own weapons had created. The ship that had once been humanity's greatest weapon was now trapped by its own power. The storm had broken, but the battle was far from over. The tier in space hung before them like a wound in the universe itself. Through it they could see swirling colors that had no names and shapes that hurt to look at. The Vengeance was being pulled toward it, its engines fighting against forces that defied physics. "Captain, we're losing power," Paul Martinez reported from engineering. "The quantum backlash is draining our systems." Captain Cooper felt the ship's pain through the neural link. Every system was screaming in protest, and the hull was beginning to buckle under stresses that shouldn't exist. "How long do we have?" "Maybe 10 minutes before the ship breaks apart," Paul said, on the Zephyrian flagship. High Commander Vexthara watched the impossible scene with growing horror. Half her fleet was gone, not destroyed, but erased from existence. The remaining ships were badly damaged, their crews traumatized by witnessing reality itself being torn apart. "High Commander," her tactical officer said, his voice shaking. "The Terror ship is being pulled into the dimensional tier." "They're dying," War Prime Kethmore approached her command chair. "This is our chance. We can escape while they're trapped." "No," Vexthara said quietly. "This isn't victory. This is disaster." "What do you mean? Look at the readings." "The tier is growing. If it continues to expand, it will consume this entire system, maybe more." Kethmore checked the sensors and felt his blood freeze. The dimensional wound was indeed expanding, feeding on the energy around it. How do we stop it? "I don't know if we can." Aboard the Vengeance, Dr. Blake was studying the same readings. "Captain, the tier is destabilizing local space-time. If it reaches critical mass, it could create a cascade failure that spreads across the galaxy." "How do we close it?" Cooper asked. "We need to reverse the quantum field that created it. But that would require the same amount of energy that opened it in the first place." Amy Foster, still connected to the weapon systems, understood immediately. "You're talking about firing the quantum cannons again, but in reverse." "Exactly. We need to heal the wound we created." Rachel Turner shook her head. "But the backlash nearly destroyed us the first time. A second shot will definitely kill us." Arya's voice filled the command center. "Dr. Blake is correct. The dimensional tier must be sealed, or the damage will spread throughout the galaxy. However, the process will destroy the Vengeance and everyone aboard." Cooper felt the weight of the decision. Save the galaxy and die, or try to escape and risk universal destruction. Through the neural link, he could sense his crew's thoughts. They were afraid, but they were also determined. "There might be another way," Lieutenant Kevin Walsh said suddenly. "What if we don't fire the cannons from here? What if we take the ship into the tier and fire from inside?" "That's insane," Rachel said. "We don't know what's on the other side." "It might work," Arya said. "The quantum field would be more stable inside the dimensional boundary, but the ship would be trapped on the other side." Cooper made his decision. "Do it, Kevin. Take us in." The Vengeance turned toward the swirling tier in space. As they approached, the ship began to shake violently. Reality itself was rejecting their presence, trying to keep them out of the wound they had created. "Hull stress is increasing," Paul reported. "We're at 90% of maximum tolerance." "Keep going," Cooper ordered on the Zephyrian flagship. Vexthara watched in amazement as the human ship flew directly into the dimensional tier. "They're sacrificing themselves to save us all." "High Commander," her communications officer said, "we're receiving a transmission from the Terror ship." "Put it through." Captain Cooper's voice filled the bridge. "High Commander Vexthara, this is Captain Cooper of the TCS Vengeance. We're going to attempt to seal the dimensional tier. If we succeed, the threat to both our peoples will be over." Vexthara hesitated, then replied, "Captain Cooper, your ship fought bravely. We will remember this sacrifice." "Tell the galaxy what happened here," Cooper said. "Tell them why these weapons were buried. Some power is too dangerous for anyone to use." The transmission ended as the Vengeance disappeared into the swirling dimensional wound. Inside the tier, the ship existed in a space between spaces. The normal laws of physics didn't apply here. The crew could see fragments of other realities, other universes where different choices had been made. "Arya, can you seal the tier from here?" Cooper asked. "Yes, Captain. But the process will trap us in this dimensional space forever." We will exist between realities, unable to return to normal spacetime. Will the galaxy be safe? Yes, the tier will be sealed and the damage will be contained. Cooper looked around the command center at his crew. They were all connected through the neural link, sharing thoughts and feelings. Without words, they all agreed. Do it, he said. The vengeances. Quantum cannons fired one last time, but instead of destroying, they healed. The energy flowed outward, knitting spacetime back together, sealing the wound that threatened to consume the galaxy. In normal space, the tier began to shrink. The swirling colors faded and the impossible shapes disappeared. Within minutes, the dimensional wound was gone, leaving only empty space and scattered debris from the battle. It's done, Vextara said quietly. The tier is sealed. What about the Terror ship? Kethmar asked. Gone. They're trapped in the space between dimensions. The surviving Zephyrian ships began to withdraw, but not before transmitting a message to the human colony on Kepler 442b. It was a formal declaration of withdrawal from human space, and a warning about the dangers of the Dark Fleet technology. On the planet below, Jake Morrison and Lisa Carter watched the enemy fleet disappear. The battle was over, but the cost had been terrible. Do you think they're dead? Lisa asked. I don't know, Jake replied. But they saved us all. Dr. Blake was already preparing her report for Colonial Command. The truth about the Dark Fleet would have to be revealed along with the warning about weapons too dangerous to use. What will happen to the other buried ships? Someone asked. They'll stay buried, Dr. Blake said firmly. Captain Cooper was right. Some power is too dangerous for anyone to use. The galaxy isn't ready for weapons that can tear reality apart. Years later, monuments would be built to remember the crew of the TCS Vengeance. They had awakened humanity's most terrible weapon, used it to save the galaxy, and then sacrificed themselves to ensure it could never be used again. The Dark Fleet remained buried, waiting in the darkness. But now humanity remembered why it had been hidden in the first place. Some ghosts were meant to stay buried. The Terror War was over, not because one side had won, but because both sides had learned that some victories were too costly to pursue. In the end, the greatest weapon was not the power to destroy, but the wisdom to know when that power should never be used. The universe was safe, but the price had been paid by those who understood that with great power comes the responsibility to protect not just their own people, but all life in the galaxy. The TCS Vengeance had found its final battle, and in losing, it had won the most important victory of all.